Welcome to MORD the Gaoler, a Game of Thrones story, written by Brian M. Brumbaugh, read by Benjamin Kingdom. Chapter 1. The Outcast. The Vale of Eyrie, the slopes of the Giant's Lance, 281 AC. The wind up here didn't whisper, it bit. It came off the peaks like a curse, full of snow and shrieks, carrying the screams of hawks and the groan of rock shifting under ice. But MORD didn't care. The wind didn't judge him. The wind didn't beat him when it was drunk. It was better than people. He crouched low beneath a jutting ledge of granite, his thick arms tucked in close, a bloodied rabbit dangling from one massive fist. His crude trap, a bent tree branch and a loop of twine, had finally worked. Third time today. He grunted in satisfaction, a sound like a dying bear. His belly growled louder. He chewed on raw root while staring down the steep ravines below. Far off, nestled like a crown in the white mountains, the Eyrie gleamed in the morning light, cold, proud, unreachable, just like the people in it. He spat toward it. But fate, as it often did in Westeros, came clattering down the path with iron boots. A dozen Arryn guards, cloaked in pale blue, falcons on their chests, appeared around the bend, weapons drawn. MORD's eyes went wide. He tried to bolt, but hunger made him slow. One hit behind the knee dropped him like a sack of wet oats. "Got you, pig-brained bastard," growled the captain. "Poaching." On the defender of the Vale's land, MORD whimpered and thrashed as they bound his hands, but it was no use. He howled like an animal the whole march up to the Eyrie. By the time they shoved him into a side hall below the main chambers, he was bleeding from both nostrils and had pissed himself. They laughed. Then a new voice cut through. "Enough." It wasn't loud, but the effect was instant. The guards straightened. MORD blinked. Lord Jon Arryn stood in the archway, a fur-lined cloak around his shoulders, his face solemn and tired. He looked like a man who hadn't smiled in 20 years and didn't miss it. "What's his name?" he asked. "MORD, my lord. From the hill tribes, we think." "What crime?" "Hunting rabbits. 3 times in 2 moons. "Execute him?" Jon asked plainly, as if ordering a window opened. "No one's claimed him, my lord. No kin, no home. He just lives out there." Jon studied the trembling, half-frozen brute. MORD's eyes were wide and frightened, his nose crusted with dried snot, his cheeks red with windburn. But there was something in him, something not quite feral. Not yet. "Do you understand me?" Jon asked. MORD blinked, then slowly nodded. "I ain't bad," MORD croaked. "Just hungry." "And stupid," one guard muttered. Jon turned his gaze to the captain. "Where's our last Gaoler?" "Moon Door, my lord," the captain answered, trying not to smirk. "Took pity on a prisoner, set him loose. Lady Lysa had him removed." Jon sighed. "Put this one in his place." There was a stunned silence. "You want this one to be the next Gaoler?" the captain asked, genuinely confused. Jon nodded. "He looks the type who wouldn't open a door if the world was ending, and if he does, we have another use for the Moon Door." The guards chuckled. MORD didn't understand most of the words, but he did understand one thing. He wasn't going to die today. 2 weeks later, the Sky Cells. The Sky Cells weren't built for comfort or mercy. 3 walls of cold stone. 1 wall was nothing, just open air. A perfect view of death, a 600-foot drop to the rocks below, sharp enough to shred bone to dust. The floor sloped gently down toward that abyss. Sloped just enough to make men dream of slipping in their sleep. MORD had never felt so powerful. He patrolled with a heavy iron ring of keys clinking at his side and a short cudgel in one hand. He didn't know who was in the cells most days, only that they were there because someone more important had said so. He made up names for them. Shaky Legs was always crying. The pisser couldn't hold his bladder. The quiet one stared at the edge of the sky like he wanted it to speak back. MORD didn't feed them much. Bread. Maybe a bit of onion. Sometimes he forgot. If they asked, he'd growl. If they begged, he'd grin. He liked telling them about the wind. It comes up fast, the wind, he'd say, crouching just close enough to be creepy. Catches in your cloak, pulls you like a kite. You don't fall. You fly. Till you don't. He loved the look in their eyes when they believed him. And the cold? Oh, the cold was his favorite. He'd take cloaks, shoes, even the straw mats if he was feeling mean. Once he shoved a man's boots just outside the cell. The man sobbed, reaching and stretching until he finally tried and slid halfway before crawling back screaming. Mord had laughed until his ribs hurt, a new kind of routine. He got to like it, in time. The silence, the simplicity. No one asked him questions. No one beat him when they were drunk. The lords never came down here, only guards sometimes. And when they laughed at him, he just tightened his grip on the keys. Let them laugh. He had the doors. He began carving marks into the stone, one for each prisoner, one for each that screamed, a double line for the ones that didn't. He didn't understand politics, or the Seven, or the names that floated in and out of the keep like ghosts, but he understood the cells. People came in proud, screaming they were innocent, but the slope always won. Eventually they all crawled away from the edge. Eventually they begged, and one night, a storm. Lightning rolled across the peaks. Rain lashed the stone. One of the cells leaked, and Mord just watched the water pool at the sloping edge. Inside, a man was curled tight around himself, shaking. A nobleman, or so he claimed. His boots were gone, his pride too. Mord squatted beside the bars. "You hear that wind?" he whispered. The man nodded, teeth chattering. "She likes it when you scream, the wind." He smiled, got up, and walked away humming tunelessly. Atop the Eyrie, the moon door. Some nights, Mord stood near the moon door after bringing water to the guards. It wasn't locked, just barred, a single push, and he sometimes thought about what it felt like, the fall. Maybe it was like flying, but no, he had work to do, and more doors to lock, more stories to carve into stone. And soon, very soon, a very different prisoner would arrive, with gold on his tongue and a lion in his name. But for now, Mord was content. He wasn't hungry anymore. He had keys. And in the world of the sky cells, that made him a king. Chapter 2. The Crow Killer. 3 months later, sky cells, Eyrie dungeons. The new ones smelled like pine sap, crow feathers and rot. Mord wrinkled his nose as the guards dragged the man through the lower passage. His wrists were shackled, his face bloodied, but he was smiling. Worse, he was talking. "Don't see why you're dragging me here," the man said cheerfully, despite the bruises. "Deserter? That's what they call it now, eh? Back in the old days they just slit your throat and pissed on your boots." "Keep walking," a guard growled. Mord shuffled forward, keys jangling. He liked this part, when they still had fight in them. The sky cells fixed that fast. "Who's this?" Mord asked, his voice a low gravel scrape. "Deserter from the wall. Caught him trying to barter night's watch gear for a whore and a horse." The guard shoved the man forward. "Claims he killed 5 wildlings. Claims he took the black twice." Mord squinted. "He killed crows?" The prisoner cackled. "I was a crow, pigface." The guards laughed. Mord didn't. The man looked up, eyes shining with something dangerous. "They call me Crow Killer in the taverns now. Got a real song about me. Want me to sing it?" "No," Mord muttered. But the man sang anyway, wheezing the lyrics through a split lip as they opened the sky cell. "One crow flew north, one crow flew west. I took their cloaks and knifed their chests. One crow wept, one crow fled. The last one screamed while I took his head." The guards shoved him inside mid-verse. The cell door clanged shut like a guillotine. The Crow Killer turned toward the open sky, took one long, slow look over the edge, and laughed. Better view than the wall. Day 1. Mord didn't like this one. He didn't beg, didn't sob, didn't shiver. He talked. Every day. To Maud, to himself, to the wind. "You're a quiet one," the man said once, leaning casually against the sloped stone, balancing just near the edge like he didn't fear the fall. "You ever been beyond the veil, Pigface?" Maud grunted. "Didn't think so. Out there they tell stories about the Eyrie, about the sky cells. And you're in 'em, I bet. The brute who watches the dead fall." "I ain't no brute," Maud snapped. The crow killer laughed. No. You're a warden of the winds, a watcher of the drop, the very mountain's ballsack." Maud smacked the bars with his cudgel. The man flinched, then smiled again. "You like hurting folks, don't you?" Maud didn't answer. He just kicked the man's water cup through the bars, then walked off grumbling. Day 3, when Maud returned with stale bread and a sliver of dried onion, the crow killer was standing naked in the moonlight. Maud stopped. "What you doing?" he growled. "Getting used to the cold," the man said, arms wide. "Winter's coming, yeah? Might as well practice." Maud didn't know how to respond, so he threw the bread onto the floor and stormed off, muttering about lunatics. Day 5. "Got a question for you, Pigface." Maud froze. The crow killer was squatting in the far corner now, carving something into the wall with a piece of bone. He didn't look up. "What happens when you die, eh? You go through the moon door like the rest of us? Or you think they'll just roll you off the edge like a wine barrel?" Maud's hand twitched toward his cudgel. "They won't," he said flatly. "No? You think the lady up there cares if her dog keels over?" "I ain't no dog. You're worse. Dogs are loyal." "You just like watching the edge get closer." Maud stepped forward, but the man stood and faced him. "Come on, Pigface. I'm not afraid of you." And for once, Maud believed him. Day 6. The turning. It happened at dawn. The guards found Maud lying flat on the stone, chest heaving, face pale. The cell was open. The crow killer was gone. They sounded the alarm. Within minutes, a search party was combing the lower ledges. No trace, no blood, no body, just gone. "Did you open the cell?" the captain demanded, grabbing Maud by the collar. Maud shook his head, lips trembling. "Didn't open nothing." But the keys were missing. A week later, they found the skeleton of a dead raven impaled on a spike 300 feet below the Eyrie, next to a torn strip of black cloak. The sky cells gained another mark in Maud's wall. Only this one he carved twice, and he never sang that crow song again. Chapter 3. The Songbird. Sky cells, 1 month later. He came in wearing a doublet of red and gold silk, muddy, torn and speckled with blood, but still rich enough to say he didn't belong in a place like this. His wrists were bound delicately, as though the guards feared bruising him. His nose was broken, his lips split, and his left eye swollen shut. But when they threw him down at Maud's feet, he coughed once and laughed. "Tell me, good Gaoler," he said in a Dornish accent, teeth gleaming through blood. "Do you prefer tenor or baritone?" Maud blinked. "He's a bard," the captain explained, irritated. "From Gulltown. Sang a song about Lady Lysa's, well, about her body parts. Claimed her teats hung like goats' udders in the wind." "I said loved like goats' teats," the bard corrected, smug. "It was meant as metaphor." Maud didn't understand the words. He just unlocked the sky cell and shoved the man in. "Sing in there," he grunted. Day 1. He sang. "Gods!" he sang. Maud had heard screaming, wailing, sobbing. But this was something else. It echoed off the stones and rang down the corridors like cathedral bells. It wasn't always words. Sometimes it was humming. Sometimes it was full ballads about knights and wine and things Maud had never touched or tasted. But it was always beautiful. Too beautiful. Maud hated it. "Shut it!" he barked the next morning, rapping his cudgel on the bars. The bard smiled, seated cross-legged near the edge of the cell, plucking invisible strings from the air. "I'm writing a new one. About you," Maud squinted. "About me? Oh yes. Working title, The Swine of the Sky Cells." He hummed a tune so gentle it might have come from a lullaby, then added, His cudgel cracked bones, his belly hung low, his wit was as sharp as a slug in the snow. But God save the fool who mocked his thick hide, for he'd smile while you screamed, and send you to fly. MORD stood frozen for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away, but the song stayed in his head. Day 3, the night of silence. It didn't stop. The singing continued for days. The bard paced the sloped stone, singing to the sky, to the birds, to the cold. MORD began skipping his rounds just to avoid it. One night, at the edge of sleep, MORD heard a line float down through the dark. The wind is a friend to the men who fall. It cradles their bodies, then kisses them all. He dreamt of falling, dreamt of a giant harp strung between mountains, of wind playing strings of bone. He woke shivering, sweating through his furs. Day 4. MORD brought no bread. He stormed down, keys jangling, breath misting from his nostrils like a bull. I said, "Shut it." The bard stopped mid-line, looked him straight in the eyes. "Why? Are you afraid of hearing something true?" MORD opened the cell, grabbed him by the collar, and slammed him into the wall. "You mocking me?" he snarled, cudgel raised. The bard, stunned, wheezed and nodded. "Yes." That was all he said. MORD hit him once, not hard, just enough to leave a bruise. Then he backed out and slammed the door. And still, the bard sang. Day 6, the fall. That evening, the wind howled louder than usual. The bard had gone quiet. MORD checked the cell at dusk, furs wrapped tight, cudgel in hand. Inside, the bard was standing barefoot near the edge, his cloak folded neatly behind him, as if preparing for a noble supper. "Gonna jump?" MORD asked, strangely calm. "No," the bard replied softly, "not yet. I just wanted to see if the wind knew my name." MORD frowned. "Do you?" The bard turned, smiling gently. "Know my name?" MORD nodded. The bard whispered, "Mikkel, of Gulltown." Then, without waiting, he stepped back from the edge, returned to his folded cloak, sat and began humming again. This time, MORD didn't stop him. Day 7. No song. The next morning, there was silence. Not the kind that comes with sleep, the kind that comes with absence. MORD approached, frowning. No singing, no humming. The cell was empty, only the cloak remained. The guards assumed he'd jumped. MORD wasn't so sure. He stared over the edge for a long while. The wind whipped past him, tugging at his ears like a lover's hand. Somewhere down the mountain, a single note seemed to echo and vanish. He scratched another mark in the stone wall of the hallway, a long, slow one. Chapter 4. The Widow's Son. Sky cells, 2 weeks later. The boy didn't look like a prisoner. He looked like a servant who'd taken a wrong turn. 16, maybe 17, cheekbones high, fingers thin, no weapon calluses. His hair was shaggy and blonde, matted with sweat. The guards shoved him forward without ceremony. "Petter of Snakewood," one muttered. "Confessed to murdering a merchant, knife to the gut." "Didn't do it," the boy whispered. MORD didn't care. MORD had bread to chew and a nail in his boot. And now he had a new bird for the cage. The sky cell door groaned open. "No jumping," MORD muttered. "I didn't do it." MORD just grinned and slammed the door. Day 1. The boy didn't cry. He sat in the corner with his arms around his knees and stared out at the void. That bothered MORD more than if he had wailed. "You're gonna slip," MORD said through the bars. "Ain't no one who don't slip." The boy said nothing. That night, the wind blew hard enough to shake dust from the stones. MORD lay in his straw pallet and listened, imagining the boy's hands pressed against the wall, trying not to slide. Day 2. Still no crying. MORD brought bread and a small tin cup of water, set it by the bars and stared. "You're not like the others," he said, voice low. The boy looked up. "You talk like you know them." "I do. Did you ever talk to them?" MORD squinted. They screamed, "That's not the same." Day 4. The truth. MORD sat beside the cell that evening, eating a cold onion like an apple. The boy spoke for the first time in hours. My name's Peter, from Snakewood. My ma was a washerwoman for House Belmore. Maud grunted. She died last year. Bad cough. I took her ashes to the sept myself. Maud shrugged. I worked at the market, hauled crates. Then they said I stabbed a merchant, but I didn't. I saw who did. It was one of the night squires. Fancy sword. I told the truth, and they locked me up. Maud picked at his teeth with a splinter. I ain't the one who makes the doors open, he said. No, Peter said softly. You're just the one who watches them close. Day 5, the game. The slope was subtle, but Peter knew how to measure. He began inching a line of breadcrumbs along the stone floor, testing gravity. One by one the crumbs slid and fell. You think it pulls us in? He asked aloud. Or pushes us out? Maud grunted. Peter looked up. You ever been out there? Where? Past the Eyrie, past the Vale. The Riverlands? The Reach? Maud frowned. Don't need to go nowhere. Got a bed. Got a cudgel. Got keys. Peter smiled. That's not a life. That's a list. Day 6, the edge. That night, Maud dreamed. He was standing in the sky cell, but he was locked inside, and Petir was outside the bars, laughing, tossing keys like coins into the wind. The slope dragged Maud toward the void no matter how he scrambled. His feet couldn't grip. His hands found no edge. He woke gasping. He went to the cell. Petir was asleep, curled near the back wall. Maud stared at the boy. For once he felt wrong, like a dog who bit someone kind, like a boot on the wrong foot. He didn't know why. Day 7, a shift. The guards came with news. Trial's tomorrow, they said. Trial, Maud grunted. For him, he's lucky. Lady Lysa's in a good mood. Maud looked down at Peter, who was watching birds circle in the rising dawn. You gonna say what you said before? I'll say the truth, the boy said. Maud grunted. Won't help, no, Petir said. But it'll be mine, the trial. Maud wasn't allowed inside the high hall, but he lingered nearby. 2 hours later, a servant came down the corridor with the verdict. Guilty, she whispered. Maud didn't ask how. The guards came with ropes. No need, Maud said. I'll do it. They let him. He walked up to the cell alone. Peter looked at him with tired eyes. Guess it didn't matter, huh? No, Maud said. Peter stood, smoothed his shirt. Do it quick. Maud unlocked the cell. Peter walked to the edge, stared out, and stepped forward without a word. No scream, only wind. Later that night, Maud sat in the dark corridor with the keys in his lap. He stared at the stone wall where he carved his marks. 1 slash for each prisoner. He made one now. Then beside it, another, smaller one. He didn't know why, but something in him said, this one deserved more. Chapter 5, The Spy. Sky cells 1 moon later. She arrived at night. That alone made Maud suspicious. Prisoners didn't come at night. Not usually, not quietly. But this one came in a closed litter, guarded by Arryn men and whispered orders. Maud had just finished his evening crust when the High Captain himself came down the narrow stair. This one's special, he said, pulling back the hood of the woman standing beside him. No one talks to her. No one looks at her. No one listens to a single God's damned word. Maud squinted. She was tall, older than most, with sharp cheekbones and steel-grey hair that defied the torchlight. Her eyes met his and held, calm, calculating. She's a traitor, the captain muttered. Caught carrying letters between Snakewood and Riverrun. Thought she could outfox us. The woman said nothing, not a protest, not a plea. Maud scratched his belly. She talk yet? She won't. And God's help you if she starts. The captain leaned closer. Just lock the door, pig-face. That's all. Maud did, but the door wasn't the problem. It was her smile. Day 1. She didn't weep. She didn't sing. She simply watched. Maud brought her a cup of water. She didn't drink it. Brought bread. She broke it, crumbled it, never ate it. That night he crept back to see if she was dead yet. She was sitting near the edge of the sky cell, legs crossed, back straight, face turned toward the veil below. "You ain't hungry?" he asked. She finally spoke. "I don't eat what I haven't prepared." Her voice was warm honey poured over broken glass. "You think it's poisoned?" Maud asked. "I know it's not clean," she said. Maud scratched his head. "You talk funny. I'm a lady. You're a prisoner. We all serve someone." Maud frowned. He didn't like this game. Day 2, the visitor. It was just after midday when they told him, "You take her to the Solar." "Lord Baelish wants a word." Maud had never heard that name before, but it made the guards nervous, and that was enough. He fetched her with chains, like the rest, but she didn't fight. She walked beside him like a noblewoman heading to court, not a traitor heading to judgment. They walked the cold halls in silence. Then she spoke. "Do you know what this place is, Maud?" He grunted. "A cell." "It's not a prison," she said. "It's a stage. Every whisper, every scream, every fall, they all get remembered. Especially by the right people." Maud didn't answer. He didn't like riddles. He liked doors. They reached the Solar. The guards left. He stayed. Inside stood a man with a neat goatee, a grey doublet, and eyes like wet knives. Petyr Baelish. He smiled too easily. "Thank you, Maud," he said, voice smooth as polished stone. "Wait outside." Maud hesitated. "You may wait outside," Baelish repeated, sterner. Maud obeyed. The spy speaks. He heard no shouting, no screams, only voices, measured, slippery. Then laughter. That worried him more than anything. When the door opened again, she came out with a bruise blooming on her cheek, but she was still smiling. Lord Baelish followed, nodding. "Back to her perch, if you please." As Maud turned, Baelish touched his arm lightly. "She's not to fool." "Not unless I say—" Maud nodded. "And Maud—" He stopped. Baelish dropped a silver stag into his palm. For silence. Maud stared at the coin for a long time that night. He didn't put it with the others. Day 4, the truth game. The woman was different now. Still quiet, still watchful, but something had shifted. She spoke more. "You work for them?" she asked once. "I work for the cells," Maud grunted. "They don't care about you. I don't care about them neither. They'll use you until your cudgel breaks and your back bends." He stared at her. "I can offer more than they pay. You got coin? I've got information." Maud snorted. "Can't eat that." She smiled. "No, but others can choke on it." Day 5, the choice. That night, the woman didn't sleep. Maud watched her from the corridor. She was pacing, planning, whispering things to the wind. He didn't understand the words, but he understood intent. She wasn't scared. She was waiting. He went to her cell before dawn. She looked up. "Is today the day?" she asked. Maud said nothing. He stood there a long time. Finally, he tossed in a small pouch. Inside, dried meat, clean water, a coin. The woman smiled, slow and poisonous. "Baelish won't forget you." "I ain't afraid of him." "You should be," she said, "but not yet." The vanishing. 2 days later, the sky cell was empty, the door still locked, no blood, no marks, nothing, just gone. Maud never asked where she went. No one did. But later that week he found a folded scrap beneath his straw. One line, written in ink that shimmered faintly green. "In a world of falcons, even pigs have wings. If they stay quiet." Maud burned the note, but he kept the coin. Chapter 6, The Mummer's Blade. Sky cells, weeks later. Maud knew something was off the moment they dragged him in. This one was smiling, not the smug grin of a noble, not the twitching jawline of a madman. No, this was a showman's smile. Wide, practiced, perilous. He wore motley under a torn leather jerkin. His hair was dyed unevenly, black streaked with orange, and his eyes darted constantly, as if even the shadows were part of his audience. "Name's Nim Rivers, but folks call me the Mummer's Blade," he announced to no one in particular as the guards pushed him toward the sky cells. Poet, actor, swordsman. sometimes killer. Depends on the part I'm playing. The guards shoved him in, locking the cell with more force than usual. Stabbed a hedge knight in the middle of a tavern, one muttered. Said it was for dramatic tension. Maud squinted. Did he win? The guards looked at each other. He wasn't the one holding the sword, one said darkly. Nim winked at Maud through the bars. Every good story needs a twist. Day 1. Monologue. He started performing immediately. No audience needed. He paced the sloped floor like a stage, reciting monologues from plays no one had asked for. One about a doomed knight who murdered his queen. One about a butcher who fell in love with a scepter. Another, his favorite, about a jester who faked his own death to seduce a queen. You know what the key to survival is, Pigface? He said, pausing mid-recital. Suspension of disbelief. Maud threw bread through the bars. It hit Nim in the face. Nim caught it mid-bounce and bowed. Critic, he said. Day 2, death scene. Maud found him sprawled on the floor. Blood, lots of it, pooled beneath his head. His arms lay twisted, tongue hanging from his mouth. Maud blinked. He stepped forward. Then the corpse sat up. Too much? Nim asked, grinning. I'm thinking I should have moaned a bit, or maybe twitched. Adds realism. Maud grunted and stormed away. Nim shouted after him, You should have seen the look on your face. Day 3, props and lies. He had props. A chicken bone sharpened to a point. A scrap of silk tied around his wrist like a noble favour. And, God's help Maud, a rat skull he claimed was King Scurry II. He staged a trial for the rat. Spoke for all parties. Prosecution, defence, executioner. The rat was found guilty, tossed over the edge. The wind accepts your bones, your majesty, Nim declared. Maud watched from the hallway. He wasn't sure if he hated Nim or liked him too much. Day 4. The duel. Nim challenged Maud to a duel. Right there, bare hands, through the bars. 2 men, 1 cell, 1 story ends. Maud raised his cudgel. Nim bowed. Then I concede. He fell flat, pretending to convulse. Maud just walked off. Later that night, Maud found a note scratched in charcoal on the wall just outside the cell. When the actor dies, the audience begins to feel. Day 5. The real blood. Maud approached the cell with water and a bruised apple. Nim was curled near the edge, shaking. Blood was seeping from his ribs this time. Maud's brow furrowed. You done another show? No show, Nim rasped. Guard got tired of my voice, took his dagger hilt to my side, left me this encore. Maud dropped the apple. Need a healer? Nim chuckled, spitting blood. What I need, Pigface, is a better agent. Maud didn't understand. He just opened the door, muttering curses, and dragged Nim away from the edge. Thanks, the performer groaned. Now pull me back and kiss me, you brute. That's how all the best romances end. Maud shoved a cloth into the wound and slapped him instead. Nim passed out smiling. Day 6, the curtain call. They came for him in the morning. No trial, no sentence. Just a sack over the head and a rope. Orders from Lady Lysa, the guards muttered. No more performances. Nim said nothing as they tied his hands. But when Maud stepped forward, Nim whispered, Don't let them forget me. Tell the next fool that comes in here. That the mummer's blade bowed. Maud didn't reply. He just watched them take him. Later that night, Maud scratched a mark into the wall. Then he took a stick of charcoal and for the first time added something else. A little dagger, next to the line, just a shape. But it felt like applause. Chapter 7, The Scepter's Shame. Sky Cells, 2 weeks later. She wore white when she arrived, or what was left of it. Her scepter's robes were torn, smeared with ash, her veil missing, her feet bare and bloodied. But she walked like the gods carried her themselves, chin high, hands clasped, eyes fixed on something no one else could see. The guards didn't jeer. They looked nervous. Her name is Septa Melari, one muttered. She's mad. Maud eyed her suspiciously. She kill someone? Burned a shrine. in the fingers, said it was full of false idols, set fire to her own temple, claimed the seven told her to she confess. She sang, the guard said, hymns. As it all burned, MORD unlocked the sky cell without ceremony. Malari stepped inside, turned and blessed him. May the Father judge you with fairness, child, she said. MORD grunted and slammed the door. Day 1, the prayers begin. They started before dawn. She knelt facing the open sky, whispering the litany of the seven, the father, the mother, the warrior, the smith, the maiden, the crone, and the stranger. She prayed for the dead, for the living, for her jailers, even for MORD. Deliver this soul from darkness, she murmured as he passed. I ain't in no darkness, MORD snapped. She smiled. No, not yet. Day 2, the penance. She refused food. Flesh must starve so the soul may rise. MORD tried throwing in bread. She didn't even look at it. By midday she was bleeding from the knees, having spent hours kneeling on the sloped stone, murmuring prayers through cracked lips. Why you do that? MORD asked, standing at the bars. Because suffering is the only coin the gods accept, he spat. Gold works better. She opened one eye. Not where you're going. Day 3, fire and ash. That night she lit a flame. MORD still didn't know how. A piece of cloth, a sliver of flint smuggled in her robes. No one could figure it out. But there she sat, hunched beside a tiny flame built on broken straw and dead moths. She chanted to the flame, whispered to it. MORD tried to break it up. She screamed, not like the others. It was a prayer, flung skyward. Cleanse this place of rot. Burn the lies from their tongues. He doused it with his water skin. She smiled as the smoke rose. Day 4, the stranger. She didn't sleep that night. She stared at MORD the whole shift. Eyes glassy, lips moving without sound. You don't believe in the gods, she said as dawn broke. I believe in keys, MORD muttered. And pain, that too. She turned her head toward the yawning sky. The stranger waits for you. MORD's jaw tightened. I ain't afraid of no god. You should be, she whispered. He walks beside you. Every day. You just don't see him. Day 5. The breaking. MORD found himself pacing. He didn't like it. Didn't like thinking about things. About strangers. About gods. About flames that couldn't be lit. He walked to her cell. She was still there. Kneeling. You want to die, that it? He snapped. She didn't answer. You think prayers do anything? You're just talking to rocks. She finally turned. No, she said. I'm talking to you. MORD froze. No one speaks to the Gaoler. They curse, they plead, they whimper, but they don't speak. She crawled closer. You're not stone, MORD. You're flesh. Cracked and filthy and terrified, but still. Flesh. He slammed the bars. Shut up. Day 6, the end of sermons. They found her cold, not fallen, not broken, just curled in the corner like a child who'd prayed herself to sleep. She'd starved herself, bled herself, and sung herself into silence. When they came to collect the body, MORD didn't help. He stood in the hallway, silent, but that night he returned. He walked into the empty sky cell, stood in the center, and looked up at the stars. He didn't pray, but he whispered, "Don't take me yet." Later that week, he made her mark on the wall, a double line. Then, without thinking, he scratched a small 7-pointed star beside it. He didn't know why. Maybe she was right. Maybe the gods did listen, and maybe the sky cells weren't a prison at all, just a waiting room. Chapter 8, The Little Lord. Sky cells, Summer's turn. He was tiny. That's the first thing MORD noticed. Not young, maybe 15, but so slight and delicate he looked like a sparrow someone dressed in silk and arrogance. He was escorted by 2 knights, 1 maester, and a servant still sobbing into a linen kerchief. Lord Derrin of House Waxley, the captain muttered to MORD, handing over the keys. Caught cursing Lady Lysa at the feast. Called her well, doesn't matter, she heard it. Maud tilted his head. He's a lord, fifth born of a minor banner house, but he'll tell you otherwise. The boy sneered at Maud. This is a mistake, he snapped, voice clipped and nasal. My father will. Your father wrote a letter, the captain said. It started with let the brat learn. The boy's mouth dropped. Maud unlocked the cell. The boy didn't step in. Maud gave him one look, and he ran in. The door slammed. The wind howled. Day 1, the wails of Waxley. He cried within the hour. Not quietly. He shrieked. My bed is sloped. There's no window. Is that sky? Maud sat outside the cell, chewing a bit of salted pork. The boy rushed to the bars. You can't keep me in here. I'm noble. Maud shrugged. So's the wind. That didn't help. Neither did the cold. By nightfall, the boy had stripped off his fine green and gold cloak and was trying to plug the cracks in the wall with it. Maud took it when he wasn't looking. Day 2, bargaining and blubbering. 10 gold dragons, the boy whispered through the bars. Maud blinked. You got 'em now? No, but I will. When my father finds out. Maud walked away. An hour later, 20, then 100. Then I'll name a song after you. Maud grunted. The boy was shivering now, arms wrapped around himself, eyes flicking constantly to the open sky. I can't sleep, he whimpered. I'll fall. I know I'll fall. You will, Maud said flatly, if you don't stop talking. Day 3, the mock court. By the 3rd day, delirium set in. The boy began holding court with invisible subjects. He declared himself king of the sky. He ordered Maud beheaded, twice. He had a pretend wedding with the pebble he'd named Lady Stoneflower. Maud watched with mild amusement. That evening, he found the boy reciting his own trial. I plead innocent to crimes of wit and character, the boy declared to the empty air. I am beloved, Maud whispered. Not here. Day 4, the drop test. Maud tossed a stone into the cell that morning. The boy screamed. It rolled gently down the slope toward the edge. The boy ran after it, caught it just before it tipped over. He collapsed in a heap. Maud smiled. Lesson learned. Day 5, the silence. The boy didn't speak, didn't cry, didn't move from the back corner. He stared at the stone, rubbing his hands together, watching the cracks in the wall like they might speak back. Maud brought water, set it down, didn't say a word. For once, he felt something, not guilt, but something like memory. Day 6, the letter. The maester returned, letter in hand. From his father, he told Maud, told Lady Lysa to release the boy. The lessons taken. Maud opened the cell. The boy didn't move. Out, Maud grunted. The boy looked up. I don't want to. Maud blinked. I feel safer in here, the boy whispered. At least I know where the edge is. Maud stared, then grabbed him by the collar and hauled him out. No one's safe nowhere, he muttered. Not even up here. Later that night, he made the mark, a tiny one. No symbol, no blade, no prayer. Just a line barely scratched in. Then he added a second, one for the boy's fear, one for his own. Chapter 9, The Rat King. Sky Cells, the Waning Moon. They didn't bring him in through the usual stairwell. They brought him up chained to a pole, head lolling, barefoot, eyes milky with something that wasn't blindness but wasn't sight either. No name was given. The guards didn't touch him. Not directly. They used tongs and gloves. Caught him in the tunnels beneath Runestone, one said, breath hitching, sleeping in a nest of bones. Thought he was dead, but he bit Sir Lomas clean to the bone. What's he done? Maud asked. The guard hesitated. We don't know. Maud scratched his chin. You don't know? No record, no charges. He wasn't on the lists, but Lord Royce said, put him somewhere we don't have to hear him. They shoved the man forward. He crawled into the sky cell on all fours and smiled. Maud locked the door. The man began hissing to the walls. Day 1, scratching in the dark. He didn't speak words. Not at first, only sounds. Clicks, chirps, low guttural trills. That night the scratching began, scritch, 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 not just from inside the cell, but around it, below it, in the walls. MORD banged on the bars. Quiet. The man didn't stop. He just giggled and whispered, "They're listening." Day 2, the feast. He ate everything MORD gave him, even the bones. MORD watched in disgust as the man cracked them with his teeth, sucking the marrow with a gleeful moan. "Name," MORD demanded. The man leaned forward, licking the bars. "I am king," he whispered. "I wear no crown, but I have subjects." MORD raised an eyebrow. "What subjects?" The man pointed to the floor. That's when MORD saw them. Rats, at least 4, fat, calm, sitting around him like courtiers. "His Grace," the man said, stroking one, "requires silence in the court." MORD stepped back. He'd never feared the prisoners. Until now. Day 3, the ceremony. The man performed a wedding between 2 rats. He spoke in the old tongue, or something like it, chanting as he dipped their tails in his own blood and tied them together. Then he bit one. MORD nearly opened the door just to kill him, but the man turned and knew he was watching. "You wouldn't break sacred vows, would you?" he said, blood running down his chin. MORD left, fast. Day 4, the murmurs. The guards started hearing it too. MORD wasn't crazy. The sounds in the walls, not rats running, rats talking. The whisper of claw on stone that came in rhythm. The same pattern, over and over. It sounded like scratching a word. MORD. Day 5, the blood offering. MORD returned to the cell to find the man had painted the floor in blood. Symbols, circles, arrows, dead rats formed a spiral. At the center, a crude figure carved from old bread, wrapped in string, and wearing a tiny iron key around its neck. MORD's key. He checked his ring, still there. He looked back. The Rat King was gone, just gone. No door open, no fall, just absence. Then MORD saw it, scratched on the far stone wall. The king takes what he wants. The aftermath. They searched for days. No body, no bones, just tunnels in the rock. Tiny holes in the stone near the back of the cell. Too small for a man. Not for them, though, not for his subjects. MORD didn't sleep for 2 nights. He stuffed rags in the cracks of his walls, burned straw to mask the smell, tossed food out when it twitched. He made the mark on his wall. Then he added something else, a rat, with a crown. Chapter 10, The Lannister. Sky cells, early spring, 298 AC. They came in loud this time, shouting, shoving, steel on stone. A noblewoman with fire in her eyes, a knight with frost in his beard, and a dwarf in chains, wrapped in sarcasm and silks too fine for prison. MORD didn't like him, didn't like his voice, didn't like the smirk, didn't like that he kept talking even as he was dragged to the edge of death. "Unhand me, sir. I demand, you treat me as befits my station." MORD swung the baton. Once, twice. The little man hit the cell floor with a grunt. "Shut up," MORD said. Tyrion Lannister rolled to his back, eyes squinting at the sloped ceiling. "Charming," he muttered. "And I thought Casterly Rock had a damp guest wing." Day 1, the game begins. Tyrion called for MORD 5 times before noon. "MORD!" No answer. "MORD, my friend." Nothing. "MORD, you great bloated boil of a man." Smack. The baton found ribs. "Shut it," MORD growled. Tyrion groaned, then chuckled. "You strike like a girl. A large, bearded, dung-smeared girl." MORD hit him again. Later that night, Tyrion sat hunched at the far wall, hugging his knees. "Nice view," he muttered to no one. Pity about the slope. He slept with one hand against the stone. Day 2, the bargain. "MORD," Tyrion whispered. MORD ignored him. "MORD, I have gold." MORD's ears twitched. "I'm Lannister. We defecate gold." MORD walked to the bars. "You don't got none now." "No, but I will. If you take me to Lady Arryn, I'll confess. And you'll be very happy." Mord squinted. You ain't got coin? I will, Tyrion said. And you will too. Because, he leaned forward, grinning, a Lannister always pays his debts. The audience hall, the moon door. The floor was cold marble. The wind howled beyond the moon door, wide open, a hole to nothing. Tyrion stood, shackled, small and shivering before Lady Lysa Arryn. Beside her, little Robin, twitching with excitement. Catelyn Stark watched in silence, her face unreadable. Confess your crimes, Lysa ordered. Tyrion bowed. Gladly. And he did. I once stole a snake from my uncle's chamber pot and put it in my nanny's bed. I once brought a jackass and a honeycomb into a brothel. Enough, Lysa snapped. Robin clapped. Make the little man fly. Tyrion turned, eyes darting to the moon door, the wind pulling at his cloak. No, no, let's not. He licked his lips. Let's try a different route, shall we? I demand trial by combat, he announced. The chamber burst into gasps and laughter. Then you shall face justice today, Lysa said. Unless you have a champion? Tyrion smirked. I'd send for my brother, Jaime Lannister, the Kingslayer, if that name rings a bell. That will not be allowed, Catelyn interrupted. Then someone else? Tyrion offered, looking around hopefully. Nothing. No one. Until I'll stand for the dwarf. From the back of the chamber, near the moon door, Bronn stepped forward. Black leather, dead eyes, a grin like a knife unsheathed. Lysa's guard, Savardis Egan, armored head to toe, raised his sword with ceremony. Bronn just rolled his shoulders and waited. The duel, it wasn't a fight. It was a lesson. Bronn moved. Vardis struggled, the room tensed with each circle, each feint, each step toward the yawning void. Finally, steel rang, a slash to the leg, a sweep, a scream. Whoosh. Sir Vardis Aegon flew through the moon door, arms wide, armor gleaming until it vanished into the clouds. Silence. Lady Lysa stood, pale with fury. You do not fight with honor. Bronn shrugged. No. He did. The payment. As the chamber cleared, Tyrion approached Sir Rodrik Cassel. My purse, if you please. The heavy one. Catelyn gave a stiff nod. Rodrik tossed the coin pouch to Tyrion. Tyrion caught it, turned, walked to Mord, and tossed it underhand. It hit Mord square in the chest with a chink. He caught it. Heavy, gold. Tyrion winked. A Lannister always pays his debts. Later that night, Mord sat in his corridor, alone. He didn't count the coins, didn't carve a mark. He just stared at the purse and smiled. For the first time in his life, someone had paid him because he mattered. He wasn't smart, or brave, or clean, but he had keys, and today he got paid. And thus ends the tale of Mord the Gaoler, a petty, cruel, dim-witted man who lived his life between locked doors and screaming wind, but for a moment, however brief, found himself part of a story worth remembering. Thank you for listening and watching. Please like, share and comment, and as always, please subscribe if you would like more stories.